So, in spite of that much heralded peace accord and all the accompanying rhetoric, they're at it again. Political violence, it seems, is becoming rife, with opponents turning on each other and bloodshed the inevitable outcome. Fights that once took place online are now spilling out onto the streets, with scuffles and battles as rallies come under attack and the homes of opposing supporters become scenes of violence, even death. One such attack has captured the attention of Nigerians, the gruesome killing of the Labour Party's women leader in Southern Kaduna, Victoria Chimrex, a mother of 9 children, 3 of them adopted. Gunmen broke into her house on Tuesday and shot her dead. They also shot her husband in the leg, but took nothing, suggesting that it was a premeditated assassination. It was said that her political profile had been on the rise. The incident has led to widespread condemnation. The vice presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Yusuf Datti Baba Ahmed, had this to say.
Over the past few months, we have witnessed various attacks on Labour Party offices, meetings, and our members in parts of the country, and even INEC offices have not been spared. Just a couple of days ago, Mrs. Victoria Chintex, our vibrant and able women leader in our local government of Kaduna State, was assassinated while members of her family escaped with injuries. Senseless killings have gone on for too long. We call on government within the time left to at least make attempts at fulfilling its 2015 promises of securing lives and property while serving justice to the killers. Kindly, therefore, join me in observing a moment of silence in the remembrance of her and indeed all victims all over the country.
Well, for more on this, I'm joined now in the studio by the vice presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Yusuf Datti Baba Ahmed. Thank you very much indeed for coming in.
Pleasure and duty.
And this is such a grim, terrible subject, isn't it? This killing of the Labour Party's women leader in Southern Kaduna. Give us, first of all, your reaction to that very nasty attack.
We are used to reactions. It's a daily occurrence. In the last 8 years, ever since we got ourselves comforted by the promises in 2015 and the whole Nigeria became expectant of better days ahead, I truly have become accustomed. So one more killing was just another killing. It felt bad as usual, sorrowful, distasteful, and this one carries a bit of another kind of color. It's a lady, election time, build up to elections, nothing was carried away. In that particular area, we're not used to, well, we're very used to assassinations. Only about 3-4 months ago, I'm sorry I have to say this here, I have an engineer that has worked with me and his relatives, and he was sending out a distress signal in the same Kara local government of Kaduna State that his father's house, and his late father was an 80-year-old retiree from Nigerian Railway Corporation. 15 minutes later, a casual text came to my phone that that's it, they'd killed his father less than 3 months ago. We're used to this news. Dreadful.
Yes.
Well, as bad as it is, each time we hear the news, it is bad. People burned inside a bus in Sokoto. In Katsina, a daily occurrence. In Zamfara State, nearly hourly occurrence. Yobe and Borno have not completely healed. Kaduna, of all places, it is happening in the center of northern Nigeria.
But do you look at that particular attack on your party's women leader and see a correlation between that and politically motivated violence? Because, I mean, there is insecurity generally in Nigeria, but it's the link between that and politically motivated violence, or do you see it as a random attack in an area that you said is known to be prone to such sort of wanton violence?
I really can't link the two. I have not had the means, I have not received or read any report for that matter, so I'm unable to link it with politics right now. The best I can do is to speak about the general situation. Over 8 years ago, the average Nigerian, by a statistic I'm trying to build up, we were all above 20 kilometers away from an illegal firearm. Today we're speaking of all Nigerians on average being under 2 kilometers away from a firearm, illegal firearm. So it's only a matter of getting closer, taking an aim, and shooting. That's what is that's what is between every Nigerian.
But obviously, if this is linked to political violence, I mean, although any killing is gross enough, but if it's linked to political violence, then it means that things have gone up a notch between the political rivals.
Yes, but you don't expect me to link it without
a thorough investigation is still going on.
But the means of which I do not have.
Yes, totally understandable. Nevertheless, beyond the killing, which is a fairly extreme thing to have happened, we saw you earlier delivering a speech today. You've accused the other competing parties of crossing the boundaries of decency, and you've suggested that they are transgressing on peaceful activities. What do you mean by that?
Verbal attacks, disrespectful comments against a peaceful leader of ours. Let me start from the top. There is no harm, respectfully, when I say His Excellency, the former governor of Lagos State, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the presidential. I give respect to him, his name, the institution, the traditional title, and I feel good about it. But when you find a presidential as a candidate in the ruling party, stating that it is disgraceful, or was it embarrassing, to mention the name of another, you know, there is willful, deliberate, forceful attempt to disparage, disrespect, okay, and reduce the name. For all intent and purpose, internationally acclaimed, Peter Obi is a man of honor, highly respected globally. He is welcomed to every presidential villa in the world, the White House, the number 10 Downing, and many others. Who are you to say that you can't mention his name? And what is the purpose of that? Now, these are things we don't want our children to see. We don't want other Nigerians to learn from. And it is very, very necessary, therefore, to let them know, don't do this again. Then, coming down the line, 6 weeks ago or thereabouts, Mr. Shetima was, at one fell swoop, destroyed Atiku's reputation.
And then Mr. Shetima is the vice presidential candidate of the APC.
Of the APC. So you see there's a pattern in it. They have the security apparatus, they have the finances of this country, have had those of their states for so long. They are coming with all this arrogance. In one fell swoop, this man said that Atiku was selling pure water. Atiku has been, for God's sake, a vice president, Federal Republic of Nigeria. Show some respect to him. Age-wise, he's by far senior to you. This is not consistent with the education and training from the scholars, great scholars of Borno Empire. I studied in Borno. I know what respect means. He said spewing dubious statistics. This is a man who does not know the difference between statistics, index, data, ratios, figures, and so on. He just said dubious statistics, putting everything together and just condemning it.
So
it is very important and instructive that we tap them on the shoulder somehow, like, gentlemen, we are not doing this style of politics. We took an oath. We signed. Remember, Tinubu was absent in the Abdusalam Abubakar-led signing of the peace accord. So you can see the disdain that they are treating not just the peace accord itself, the rest of us who are stakeholders in Project Nigeria and Project 2023 elections. It has to stop.
So is it your sense at this stage that the rhetoric between the parties and their candidates seems to be getting more vitriolic? Because, I mean, in addition to what you talked about transgressing on peaceful activities, you've also accused your political opponents of making attacks against and disinformation about the Labour Party fashionable in this election.
You are not wrong if you say accuse, but you will be more correct if you say we stated the facts, because really everything we stated there is backed by evidence. Everything I submitted today, backed by solid evidence. For example, they jump at every small opportunity to set Peter Obi against the North and the Muslims. When oil production was the front line news, somebody
you mean discovery of oil?
No, I think it's production.
Well, the production process. Right, in the North.
Somebody felt he could justify their salaries by jumping and, this is an opportunity to say that Peter Obi hates the North. Nothing could be further from the truth. I joined Peter Obi's ticket because I know Peter Obi loves the North. He talks about the North day and night. He talks about the North being the greatest physical asset of Nigeria. The land itself, the wealth in it. When we found oil and began to produce, he couldn't be any happier. And now somebody is paid because it is political season again. Find anything that is out of this world, just put it against them. The point also we're making today is that, look, Nigerians are not reckless and careless consumers of news. Nigerians are beginning to decipher. Nigerians are beginning to discern. Thanks to credible media that is rising in profile and outreach. Nigerians, we were called today that when you hear bad news, when you hear wrong news, fake news, disregard it, take it for what it is. I was a victim. Fake social media accounts opened like daily in my name, communicating with the world that I didn't know on controversial issues, to the extent that I had to hold a special conference to stop that. Now they're doing it on my boss, Peter Obi. It cannot continue. You see, people who are calling black, white, and using all instruments to enforce it, they will now turn around to say that where you have insecurity, there is security. Where you can glaringly see the dollar at 715 naira, they will tell you that they have improved your economy. Nigerians go into the markets and buy food stuff 3-4 times what they used to buy before now, and they will still tell you we have fixed your economy. Then it's on the news every day, like the women leader now, every day, and they would come out shamelessly in broad daylight using all forms of media and propaganda and tell you that they are doing well. Who, for God's sake, in today's world assesses themselves? No one does that. It is uncivilized, it is barbaric, it is dishonorable.
Right, so you're suggesting it's the people who would make that assessment.
It is the people who would make that, absolutely.
Right. But let me ask you this, though, in making the assessment of your party, some have suggested, and your supporters, some have suggested that there are equally threads that have been emerging from the Labour Party and its supporters, particularly online, that seek to not only undermine the opposing parties and their candidates, but have been distorting their truth in a bid to change the narrative. I mean, do you acknowledge the fact that your own supporters are also pretty vitriolic online?
I absolutely do not accept, because the same opponents of ours could also claim to be our supporters and do damaging acts just to give us the bad names, and so many that we have discovered. Remember, Peter Obi found it necessary to go to Lagos and pay a visit to a famous and the son of a famous Nigerian musician, whom I would also like to go and visit to get some old records.
I like that.
Because he was unfairly attacked. Now, Peter Obi never commissioned anyone to say things like that. It's not our attitude, is not our style.
We're not saying you commissioned anyone. Yes. We're saying that because I mean, you could the APC or any of the parties could make the same argument that they're not asking anyone to go out and. Remember, I know the difference.
My presentation today had nothing and said nothing about what supporters did.
Yeah, you're right.
We were strictly about what
the candidates themselves
did. I would never look at what their supporters.
No, I understand that,
because the supporters are nearly non-existent.
Right. Well, that's a matter that will obviously be decided when the elections come. But I mean, the point is this.
Well, I can tell you they are non-existent because everything they have to do has to be paid for.
Right. Well,
so you don't have genuine, bona fide supporters that will go out and do things jealously.
Right. But given all
because of their belief in their cause.
Given all that you're telling us,
yes,
what does that also tell us about the tone that's being set in this election?
It is bad. But we're acting to correct it. There is a break from the norm, from just one political party. The others are probably too small and too overwhelmed and not properly resourced to comment on what the other two, squabbling for second and third position, are doing. Now, there have been consistent polls that have shown a rising political party come to overtake so-called dominant political parties in Nigeria, including the leading one. That is a cause of scare to them. And instead of behaving rationally, they fell into knee-jerk reactions, mundane strategies, that the best thing is set Peter Obi against the northern establishment. It failed. Ever since I joined the ticket and thoroughly investigated, and the North began to realize Peter Obi who he is, a true Nigerian, a lover of peace, a bringer of development. Ever since the North began to realize him for what he is, their whole game plans changed. Frustration set in. Insults followed. It was completely unnecessary, totally, for a vice presidential candidate to speak in the manner. One fell swoop in just one finished Atiku. I mean, look, I always say, we in the classroom know the value of knowledge. Even shoe shining is a profession. And it must be respected. If we teach it, we respect it. Hygiene is one of the most noble professions in this world. Here comes a governor from a state where education was branded as forbidden, coming to say that the training he got from Kano School of Hygiene. This man deserves to be dropped as a vice presidential candidate, because we believe in education. This is a government, remember, for 8 months, ASU was on strike. Our children were at home for 8 months. Yet you have a vice presidential candidate speaking badly about one of the most hygiene as important as hygiene is. You should praise anybody whom in the 60s studied hygiene. Whoever studied hygiene in the 60s is studying nuclear medicine now, and nuclear science now in today's world.
Right, so let me ask you this. In the context of this verbal violence that you're talking about, and it's not, I mean, I'm talking about across the board. I'm not.
Can I interrupt you?
I'm not taking sides with anyone.
Yeah, no, can I just interrupt
Yes.
you? Verbal violence easily transforms into
Physical.
actual violence.
Potentially,
and
it could.
potentially. And mostly they do.
Potentially it could.
No. Mostly they do. In the last 3 weeks, things with such statements from these leaders, presidential candidates speaking the way they did, calling another one that it is disgraceful to mention his name. He is just about to say something that is very bad. Another candidate in the north, for example, it is too heavy a word to use. You see, I don't call the names of tribes unless for technical descriptions. But at Area House, to say that northerners, after 4 seconds of contemplation, so it was not sporadic, after 4 seconds you say that northerners do not need a Yoruba or an Igbo leader. Again, that requires him to honorably quit from this race. Because the meaning of GCON, okay, Order of the Niger, is like a fraternity.
Well, clearly.
And you are a grand commander.
Right.
In the order, you have taken oath twice to promote the unity of Nigeria. And you face the North and tell them they do not need a Yoruba man. That is not true. Every Northerner needs a Yoruba man. Every Northerner needs an Igbo man. Every Igbo man needs a Yoruba and a Northerner. Every Yoruba man needs an Igbo man and a Northerner.
Well, to
this
be
is
fair,
wrong. These things have to stop.
Right, I understand that. Obviously, he's not here to defend himself, but in his
There is nothing to defend because
in his defense, he did say that it was taken out of context. But in the context of what you're saying about this verbal violence, how much, it doesn't matter who says it, whether it's the Labour Party or the PDP or APC or NNPP or whoever, how much of a hollow victory does it deliver if the parties and their supporters are turning on each other that way? Because the electorate are sitting there looking at all of you.
No. They're not looking at all of us. They're looking at 2 of them. In my submission today, we clearly stated that we have never engaged in this style of politics. We're leaving them to continue fighting between them, and sporadically they touch on our personalities, and it doesn't feel good. So we're saying, look, we're calling on you to stop this.
So your
we are
point,
not. And in my conclusion, I did state that it is not too late for the other 2 political parties to adopt our style of politics.
So your point,
strictly, we speak about consumption to production.
right, your point, I mean, we haven't seen your manifesto, let's be clear on that.
But you've heard
and
it.
Yeah, but that's a slogan that we haven't seen the way that you're going to go from consumption to production. We haven't seen it written down with all the figures and how you're going to do it
again,
and the
because
roadmap.
Because we have been subjects of attack. There has been too much interest in our manifesto.
So you're not going to release
we are going to release it very soon.
When are you going to release it?
Very soon.
Right. Well, the point really is that the point you're making, and I think a lot of people would agree with that point, is that people who make the kinds of statements that you say they're making, that you consider to be unpresidential, it ultimately makes them unfit to govern. It doesn't matter who it is, whether it is from Labour or APC or PDP or whatever. So what can be done now to prevent things from degenerating further you talked about verbal violence translating into physical violence, so it potentially could get worse. Obviously we don't, but what can be done to prevent things from degenerating into running battles on the streets as the elections draw near?
The Nigerian media help us to quickly heighten the awareness with the electorate that owners of such statements are dishonorable and not worthy of being elected. That is the most effective. The other one, what can you do? You keep going to court. It takes a very long time to do it. Just look at the case of this young Aminu Mohammed. A simple statement he made. He is now in prison, remanded in prison. I feel bad after 8 months at home. And the Buhari's White House, their parents, their children are at home studying or in international universities abroad studying. Why should Aminu Mohammed be remanded in prison now? If he did something wrong, let him be at school studying and going to court. This is very, very wrong. Now you see, even from the way their own government has been run, they came to power through denigrating all our political opponents. They didn't leave out IBB, they didn't leave out Obasanjo, they didn't leave out late Eradua in his grave, they didn't leave out Jonathan, whom they were about to defeat. Took over power on empty promises and had absolutely no clues about good governance. And what are we suffering now? The worst form of insecurity. Some countries are better than what Nigeria, particularly northern Nigeria is in. Baghdad during ISIL and Syria are better than northern Nigeria the way it is now. They didn't used to negotiate ransom on federal networks. It is happening under them. Aggravated corruption under this regime. So there is very little wonder that candidates of their parties will come out with such arrogance to say that calling somebody's name was a disgrace and telling a serving vice president to go and sell ice cream. Look, it really has to stop. One more such statement from Mr. Shetima will be greeted with 3 or 4 more. He needs to know that they don't have monopoly. We will say more effective, more painful, but in a very dignified and honorable manner, because we have the information. We're just controlling ourselves.
They've come up and said that, not necessarily the candidates, but their spokespersons have come out and said that their confidence, not the negative one, their confidence comes from their assessment of the political landscape in Nigeria and from the fact that they feel confident that the Labour Party may be maybe snapping at their heels, but it's unlikely to actually succeed in biting them when it comes to votes.
There's nothing I like being underestimated. These 2 gentlemen are solidly in the distant past behind us. Now, embracing reality is a very difficult pill to swallow. And the realities on ground they're talking about is that they have a lot of cash, which Labour Party doesn't have. The little that Peter Obi has, the minute that I have, is being managed very, very carefully.
But they're not just talking about money, though. They're talking about structures. They're saying that the PDP and the APC have been around long enough to have their structures across Nigeria.
The structure APC and PDP keep talking about is an assemblage of party members who are occupying offices to implement the budgets. That is it. If those budgets did not exist of APC and PDP, and those people did not know there is such trillion naira that is going to be spent, somebody must be in place to collect it. That is the structure.
Right, but
the structure in Labour Party, genuine citizens who believe that Nigeria needs to be better.
And you've got them across all the wards in Nigeria?
All. In fact, to our greatest
And
surprise,
all the polling booths.
in the deep northwest, maybe except one state, in the deep northeast, except one state, we were pleasantly surprised at how Labour was being received. That was in November. Now in December, long fuel queues happening, prices of petroleum products about to go up again, insecurity worsening. What is APC going to tell Nigerians? That we have more money to spend? We have structures? If they had structures, why didn't the structures solve the problem of insecurity in Nigeria? Look, what is democracy about? Producing good governance. What is good governance about? According to the Constitution, improving the security and welfare of the citizens. Now, whatever structures you have, if your party has not improved security and welfare and ended or reduced corruption, you are practically wasting the time of your country and her resources.
And on that
note,
note,
the structure they're talking about is nothing but, if you forgive my language, rubbish.
on that rather strong note, I want to thank you very much indeed. Yusuf Dati Baba Ahmed, who is the vice presidential candidate of the Labour Party. Thank you very much indeed. I shall shake your hand across the Arise table. Notice it's got the big
this is
A.
A.
Yeah.